has with us
Two
House Bill 2426.
And 2427.
Well, let's do one at a time. Do you have amendments or a substitute to
2426, Sarah has the substitute there. And I even have a couple small line amendments to that substitute, but they're tiny. They're literally one word changes.
Me?
I probably do, because sometimes I'm not sure I have the latest version. Okay, so.
Hang just a second. Everybody have the substitute for them? All right. Without objection, by general consensus, it's properly before. So, Delegate, tell us why we need House Bill 2426 as substituted,
I'm
what it
happy
does.
to. Should I put the tiny line amendments in it now or later?
No, if you've got them, we need it all.
I got them. All right. So on line 53, the first A to return a fee would be changed to the word any. Change A to any fee. So add the words NY, A-N-Y instead of A. And the second tiny line amendment is on page 54. It changes the first word or to and. Change the word or to and the amount of any copayment.
Big difference between word and and, but everybody understand what these two tiny amendments to this substitute? I don't know what the bill does.
Well,
we're getting there, and then.
Do we approve line amendments and I'll explain that?
Hang with me. Does anybody have a problem with having that properly before us? Okay. All right, as amended and the substitute for 2426. Delegate,
Yes.
please.
Okay, so the purpose of both 2426 and 2427.
Let's do one at a time.
I know, but the purpose of them is, 2426 is a bill to let you know the cost of your drugs before they're dispensed to you. So this is a bill supported by Virginia Pharmacists Association, and what it does is it says that before dispensing a drug, what the pharmacist does is if you don't have insurance, they tell you the cost. If you do have insurance, they put it through their system, and they tell you your specific cost based on your insurance. And then if you don't want it, you don't have to get it, but they can't dispense it and then say, hey, you're surprised you owe it. That's the heart of what it does. I can get through details if you like.
Any questions? Delegate Hodges, since this affects pharmacies.
Well, you're saying that the pharmacist has to give them cost prior to dispensing?
Yes.
Who's gonna pay for that? I mean, I haven't heard from BPHA on the bill.
Well,
on this bill, because number one, the pharmacy actually pays for that transaction. Every time something's transmitted in a transaction charge, which goes actually to a switch company, not a PBM.
So in order to resolve that question, if a pharmacist finds out the cost and ends up dispensing the drug, they're going to pay that charge anyway.
They're gonna pay
But
what charge?
The transaction charge.
Well, okay.
They find out the
If they
cost.
dispense it.
Okay. If they don't dispense it, then this is what lines 51 through 55 do. Then the health carrier or pharmacy benefits manager returns any fee imposed on pharmacy for the purpose of turning a cost. So I try to anticipate that problem. If someone shops around and says, how much is this drug? And they say it's $123, they say, I'm not gonna pay it, then they get their fee back. So there will be no cost to the pharmacy, which is why the pharmacists support this bill.
Would you do that? Because, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, there's a transaction charge each time. So it'd be impossible for a pharmacy in our workflow. I mean, if patients are doing this, we want to know a price before to dispense it. Then they say they don't want it. That's two transactions right there. And that's paid to a switch company at a PBM on the back end. So it goes to a switch company, then the PBM, then reverses back. So if you process it and reverse it, that's two transactions. There's a cost to, and if they don't get it, there's a cost to dispense, which you don't get if they don't get it. Plus you're paying a switch fee. So that switch fee, PBM's not gonna pay you that back, and it's impossible to know at the end of the month when you're billed for all of these transaction charges through your software vendor. It would be impossible to reconcile that and to know that.
So, I spoke with CVS, with the pharmacist, and they said they could refund those fees. That's why it says return any fee
You
imposed on
spoke
pharmacy.
with who?
I spoke with Mike, with CBS. and I
Well, they
spoke
own a
with-
PBO,
Right,
so
and
they would know.
And
but-
also spoke with Juliana, the pharmacist benefits.
Hang with me.
Yeah,
guys.
sure,
Hang-
sure.
All right, let's, hang with me, because I think his was more rhetorical than it was
Oh.
actually asking. Hang with
Okay,
me,
go ahead.
let me hang with me. Anyone, because I think we can maybe be able to get some more insight from, if there's anyone else in the audience. Anyone in the audience to speak with, in favor of House Bill 2426? Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Come on forward, let us identify yourself and give us your testimony.
Yes, my name's Marisa Brown. I live in Vienna, Virginia, and I'm a registered nurse, registered in this Commonwealth of Virginia. And I'm here to speak to the importance of transparency for us as consumers. 62% of bankruptcy cases are related to the cost of medical care. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services estimate the average American pays $10,000 a year in costs, so we really do have skin in this game. As a parent, there was a time when my daughter was receiving intravenous medication for a bone infection, and it was going to require 6 weeks of intravenous therapy. We found out after she was discharged from the hospital that now that was a outpatient bill, and we were on the hook for that. Of course, I wanted my 2-year-old daughter at home. As a registered nurse, I was comfortable hanging her IV bags, but that was a big cost that we were able to, with credit cards, able to handle. So these are real issues that affect people. Our adult son, who's 37, has autism and mental health disorders, has been on medications since he was 8 years old. Many years, those were costs that were borne by us for significant. So, in a system where healthcare providers are talking about the importance of patient-centered activities, we have got to have this level of transparency, and we have to really level the playing field. I appreciate the technical issues that were just described in the back and forth, but consumers need transparency. For your constituents, transparency is a very widely held value. So we
And one of the
continue to
challenges,
work.
those transparency have a cost, and those costs, my concern might be passed on to us, the consumers. Delegate Price, did you have a question on the response? Okay, all right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just-
Anyone else?
I have a question
I'm
for
gonna
you.
get with the response.
Sure.
Yes, sir, Delegate Hodges. Ma'am?
Ma'am,
Oh, sorry.
you know, most of this deals with pharmacy benefit managers and so forth, and you're looking at either the retailer or the whichever pharmacy to process the claim through the PBM. PBMs already know the copays, they know the costs, they have formularies, so why not just pick up the phone and call the PBM?
I think the average person doesn't even know what a PBM is. I
Well-
happen to kind of be a bit of a geek about some things, and I think it's, what I look at, in talking with Mr. Levine is, I'm gonna use this example. When I go to Panera now, I kind of really don't want to see the caloric, how much the calories are on my favorite little, sweet things, or at McDonald's, et cetera. But that level of transparency that has been imposed upon the food agency, the food, vendors and people have complained about it, it's gonna drive costs up, et cetera. But those are important transparency issues. So I think that, again, we have to really look for the average, person who is spending money, their hard-earned money on this. They always come back to us as consumers and to all of us. And I think anything that we can do to really work out these issues are gonna help people be better informed. And better informed patients are gonna have, more of participation
All right.
in their outcome.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience to speak in opposition to 2426? Or I'm sorry, in favor of 2426?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the subcommittee. Joel Hankus from the Virginia Poverty Law Center. And as I said earlier regarding Delegate Toscano's bill, patients need more information, consumers need more information. In the pharmacy arena, it's really surprising to learn about the differences in cost between different pharmacies. I've had this experience in my own family, going to different pharmacy outlets. The costs can be quite different, and when patients are required to make certain cost-sharing payments, it comes out of their pockets, and for those people who are still paying full cost, it makes a big difference. I appreciate that there are technical complexities here, but I think we do need to move forward to give the consumers the information that they need.
All right, thank you very much. Question for the respondent? No, hang with me, hang with me. Anyone else speak in favor? Anyone in the audience to speak in opposition to House Bill 2426 as substituted?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Brent Rawlings, Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association. Certainly no issues with transparency, but just as a technical matter, looking at the draft for the first time, lines 81 through 91, the concern we would have is about pharmacists and dispensing the controlled substances in the hospital setting, inpatient setting. Not really sure if the words dispensing is captured in the practice of delivering medications in the inpatient setting or in the emergency department, other situations like that. So I think that's just a technical concern that we would want to be sure is addressed.
Thank you, sir, because I would read the same way, Brent. I don't think it's addressed. It says every pharmacist. Your guys are all licensed by the Board of Pharmacists. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Nicole Lauder on behalf of CVS Caremark, the PBM. We did speak to Delegate Levine about the bill. We are not in opposition, but just wanted to clarify. CVS Caremark is working on a tool it's through the NCPDP, and I want to get the acronym right, to show the cost, the copay, and everything to the pharmacist prior to the dispensing. That's not yet complete, so we're working on it, but we don't have the ability, as Delegate Hodges said, to take back the fee that's charged.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Come on
Mr.
forward.
Chairman, members of the committee, Robert Barrago with America's Health Insurance Plans. We are fully supportive of every opportunity to be transparent, especially in the high cost of drugs. We are troubled by the very thing that Delegate Hodges brought up, which is requiring the pharmacist at the point of sale to keep querying the system and racking up charges, which then just adds to the cost of pharmaceuticals and the delivery of pharmaceuticals, which then gets put back into your premiums. So if we're trying to do something like this, we got to find a better way, and we do offer those services to our members through our PBMs to query what the cost of drugs are, through our websites and through our apps. So we would hope that you'd find some other way than requiring the pharmacist to query, keep pinging the system and racking up the charges. Thank you.
All right, sir. Yes, sir. Come on forward.
I'm Doug Gray. I'm with Virginia Association of Health Plans, and I wanted to associate myself with Robert's comments. We are in favor of transparency. We want people to be able to look things up. That's why we're investing a lot of time and effort and money and tools to try to make it easy for people to use apps to do that. And we actually do have the ability, if you call, as the delegate has suggested, to get the price as well. So, thanks.
All right, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Delegate Peace, you had a question, and Delegate Price did, and then Delegate Hodges.
Well, this is complicated for a lot of people, including myself. I'm going to ask Delegate Hodges a question. Where does the prior authorization component come into this charge on dispensing? And maybe you want to comment about the transparency.
If there is, are you talking about the prior authorization process with the physician? So the pharmacist fills that prescription, actually goes through that switch company, it's denied, there's a charge right there, then we have to get that prior authorization. It's actually done electronically to the physician, which can take anywhere from 1 day to 7 to 10 days before we actually get that response back. And typically that response may or may not come back to the pharmacy because the patient actually owns that prescription and could take that prescription to any pharmacy they want to. So the patient is often notified and not the pharmacy.
That was my question.
And they may or may not be notified.
When does the patient find out in that process?
It's going to depend on the insurance company.
That's very good.
Yeah, I can do it. I completely am acknowledging my privilege as someone with wonderful insurance, but when I call my pharmacy, and I have quite a few medicines, when I call them, I ask them how much is it going to be. Is that the sense of it is that because I do have the insurance that I can find that out prior to the pharmacist collecting fees. I have not encountered this problem
Actually,
that we're trying to solve.
I'd like to partly address that because I have called, in fact, I called when I first joined the House Delegates, and I said, hey, if I'm on this insurance plan, because I wanted to know what a common cost for a very common cholesterol drug was. And I said, if I'm on Anthem, how much does it cost? I'm on Aetna. They said, we can't tell you that information. And they would not tell me the information. I said, how am I going to find out the information? they said, well, you join the plan, and then you order the drug, and then we dispense the drug, and then we send you a bill. And I said, well, what if the cost is too high? They said, well, in 1 year, you can change your plan. That was probably the genesis of this bill, although certainly I've heard from many people, they just don't know how much these things are. But because they get to find out prior to the bill, under this bill, prior to being dispensed, they can decide, you know, if I order a steak, I know how much that steak costs before I get the steak. Now, the concern that Delegate Hodges raises, or the concern, you know, I hear pinging the system sounds like I'm gonna check the price 20 times. If they check the price, and the price is reasonable, and the patient buys the medication, there's no extra charge from this bill, zero, because they had to pay it anyway. Now, if they check the price, and the patient says, this is way too much money, I'm not gonna spend $200 on my medication, I'm gonna use GoodRx, I'm gonna go to the pharmacy down the street. Delegate Hodges is right, there is a charge, something like 2 or 3 cents per prescription. And that matters, which is why the pharmacist asked me to provide Section F, which says that any contract between a pharmacist and a PBM says that if you check the price and you don't dispense the medication, you gotta refund that.
Okay, I think we got it. Delegate Hodges, you have
So,
another question, sir?
kind of
We need
comment
to
to
sort of
follow
wrap
up on
this
that process, it's not quite that easy. Number one, you need a prescription to be able to process with the physician the drug, the quantity, how you're taking it in order to process it. The charge is probably 7 to 9 cents on the back end for each transaction, which the pharmacy actually would bear that cost, which is non-refundable, because that's through the switch company, not the TBM.
Measure to lay on the table passes on a 9-1 vote. All right, Doug, you have a second bill?
I do. So,
It's House Bill 2427.
I do.